I am in Rio de Janeiro and I realized that I'm wearing almost the exact same clothes that I wore when I finished the Sydney to Newcastle run a couple of weeks ago. Now, minus the jellyfish earrings and the little Adidas runners, and I'm certainly not going for a run today. I'm actually heading down Copacabana Beach to get breakfast before I start the trip home. But today's episode of the show, what I want to talk about are anchors. So physical anchors, mantras, and win celebrations that help us to anchor our new identity and what this means. I'm Suzanne Rath, and you're listening to Endurance for your daily dose of endurance leadership and life lessons. So first of all, let's talk about physical anchors. Now, I generally don't actually wear running clothes out except when I'm actually running. And when I put these on this morning for a really casual walk along the beach, just to go and get some breakfast before I head to the airport, I had a little thought about how much of a shift in my identity running 270 Ks was. So a few years ago, I had a pretty significant bike accident. I speak about this in my keynotes, and I hated running for a number of years. I was in a lot of pain after it. I couldn't get back to the same times I had before. I took up triathlon, I took up trail running, and it was only when I started to anchor back into my vision of why I wanted to run, for that connection, the exploration, the adventure, when I obviously orchestrated my recovery, and when I really connected with my values and what running gives to me, that I absolutely fell back in love with it again. And the effect of that was that in many ways I actually run better than I have for years. And so these physical anchors can really help us to remember how far we've come. Let me talk about another identity shift. So something I hear quite a lot in my clinical business and from other business owners is about this shift from being the technician, so say being the physio, or if you're a tradie, being the tradie, to being the CEO. And I've made that shift where I don't treat anymore. I mostly lead with my team. I do strategy. I have managers in place. I do leadership development so that other people can take over some of those roles. And actually, sometimes having some physical anchors can be helpful. So whether that's dressing like a CEO, having your makeup done like a CEO, having time blocks in the day, doing your office up to a better standard, whatever the case might be, so that you actually upgrade your identity. Now, I certainly don't think that we all need to be going around done up to the nines all the time. That's certainly not a big point of my identity. But I do, say for speaking and coaching, for example, I have a speaker uniform. It's just my clothes that all go really well together, and I've had color grading done and all the rest of it. But this is what I wear when I want to feel confident when I'm speaking on stage. I know that when I put these things on, that's my speaker persona, if you would. Now, the second thing I wanted to talk to you about was mantras as anchors. So during the Great North Walk, I had 3 things which I kept in my head, and they were written on my arm until they washed off, because it turns out the permanent marker is not actually that permanent. One of them was to become extraordinary, start to do extraordinary things. So I'm obsessed with this idea of living an extraordinary life, and my idea of an extraordinary life is probably very different to yours. What you need to do is to find what your version of an extraordinary life is and work out how you need to get there. Get rid of the things that are not aligning with that. Things that don't align with me living my version of an extraordinary life, for example, are a lot of late nights, drinking alcohol, having a gazillion acquaintances rather than a core group of friends, right? Having people in my corner who maybe don't necessarily support my goals and dreams. Like none of those align, with my version of an extraordinary life. The second thing that I had was, what a privilege to be tired from something that so few people can do. And so many of us in our work, in our lives, we work ourselves to this point where we're in leadership, or we own a business, or we have the house, or we have the things, And then we complain about being tired. And there's a couple of words that I really endeavor not to use in my life. One of them is busy. We're all addicted to being busy. Like, what? I like to say that my life is full, because I like to have a full life. If I didn't like to have a full life, I would endeavor to not fill it so much. But you know, this idea of busyness or being tired all the time, it's just such an addiction, and it's such negative language. And then the third mantra, I have actually just forgotten, and I will need to come back to you on. And then the third thing that I wanted to share with you around identity anchoring. Oh, sorry. So on the mantras, having a mantra for your business or for your life to anchor your identity to is really, really important. So one of the things that I used as a mantra in my shift from being a technician to being a CEO to being a leader was the idea that I can help more people. Like, I always wanted to impact on more people. So if I could spend more time mentoring my team, leading my team, growing the business, growing my speaking, growing my coaching, developing my frameworks, writing, creating, doing all that kind of things, I could help far more people than I could on a one-to-one basis in a treatment room. Now, I still do some one-to-one coaching, but I see that as helping those business owners and leaders to help more people. And then the third thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of identity and anchors is wins anchors. So I'm not wearing them right now, but after the Great North Walk, I went and bought myself some nice new jewelry. Now, I don't believe that we should always reward ourselves in terms of material things. I don't think I'm a particularly materialistic person. I much prefer to go on adventures. But having some little thing that we say we're going to reward ourselves with for reaching our goals or our targets trains our brain to want to go for more things. Otherwise, our brains just start to think, what's the point? So now, like, I can now anchor the clothes that I'm wearing today with finishing that run. Oh my gosh, the feeling, how incredible. Every time I wear this running gear, actually, I don't think I can ever throw it out now, but every time I wear it, I will think, this is when I finished that incredible run. And similarly, every time I wear that jewelry, I will think, well, that was my reward. But we can anchor wins in other ways. So a win might be deciding to consciously go, actually, I'm going to go and sit in a coffee shop and read my book for half an hour once I finish that block of work time. Novelty. Sometimes, not often enough, I will go down to one of the beaches in Cairns and I will work from a cafe there. And I sit there and I think, oh my gosh, what a novelty this is. This is amazing. I can't believe I have the freedom to do it. I'm doing the same work, but I'm actually just rewarding myself by going into a different situation to do it. So I hope those 3 ideas of anchoring and identity were useful for you. So just to recap, the physical things, whether it's things in your house, things in your office, things that you wear. Secondly, the mantras, so having something that you repeat to yourself. And then thirdly, something to celebrate your wins when you do achieve great things. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow for more from Endures. Bye.